how the tide turns, because let me respond to a couple of things. First of all, if you look at the elections prior to the presidential elections, the Democrats hadn't lost any. They were on a run. Now, part of that was was the whole Dobbs thing and the abortion thing, which ran out of steam in the 2024 election. But they were on a winning streak. You talk to James Carville, he's like, "Well, we haven't lost any elections." Now, having said that, I also challenge Democrats to name me one time where listening to progressives paid off. I can't think of any. Maybe there is one, but I can't think of any. So, and as far as the election goes, I think the only chance the Democrats had to win is that they could have gotten someone in there who could have positioned his or herself as an outsider, because Trump was a quasi incumbent. And I think he had a lot of baggage, but that would have taken a Bill Clinton skill level politician. And unfortunately, right now, there was no one in the party that could have done that. So overall, I agree with you that they were, when you look at stats, like 2/3 of the country thought we were on the wrong track. 2/3 of the voters in 2024 had never experienced inflation before. That was a killer stat. So, but going forward, I think, again, if you look at 2010 or 2009, how despondent Republicans were after Barack Obama's election, where Obama not only won more decisively, but they had 60 seats in the Senate. They had a huge House majority. And,
Mhm.
a year and a half later, they win 63 seats in the House. So we have a fickle
Well,
election.
and here's the difference. That's I'm so glad you pointed that out because I want to make this point because I was there in '09 in the House at the Oversight Committee when that sea change happened. And here's the difference between Democrats and Republicans. When Republicans got shellacked in the election and Democrats rang the table with everything and had seemingly impervious majorities, at the Oversight Committee, they installed Darrell Issa to be the attack dog. John Boehner told him, "We are now in the communications business, not the policymaking business." And we acted accordingly, and we ran gangbusters over the Democrats. Flash forward to right now. The ranking member of the House Oversight Committee for Democrats is Jerry Conley. He just died of cancer. Like, he is no longer with us. Rest in peace, Jerry. The debate about who's going to replace him, well, the one guy who wants to do it is Stephen Lynch, who's over 75 years old. The other person is Jasmine Crockett, who's a younger generation Democrat. The fact that this is even a debate right now tells you Democrats have learned nothing from the past. They've learned nothing but what we did in the Republican Party. We went to that committee and we recruited people like Mick Mulvaney, people like Mark Meadows, people like Patrick McHenry, people like Jason Chaffetz and Trey Gowdy and Jim Jordan, and we ran gangbusters over it. We were a freaking posse that didn't give a shit, and we took aim at Barack Obama in that White House every single day, unapologetically, with strength, with force, to the point where even our own party at times were nervous about how far we were going. But we did it. Democrats don't have that in them right now.
Or do you don't think AOC gets that runs for that position again?
She has already said that she knows she wouldn't win, so she's not going to run again for it.
But Crockett's more of a disaster than the alternative. I mean, like, she is so I mean, maybe I'm saying that as a Republican only, but she's just not likable.
I think that it doesn't matter if you're like Darrell Issa is one of the least likable people on the planet. He's the richest member of Congress, Southern
Yes.
California. Like, it
From
didn't matter.
Piper,
We didn't
from
want you to
Piper.
like. We exactly. We wanted you to be annoyed by him. We wanted Democrats to be like, "Oh, I hate Darrell Issa," which is what they did. Like, I'm okay with in that specific role having an antagonist there because that's what the job calls for.
But Kurt, you also bring up a really excellent point, and that is you talked about the shellacking. In hindsight, the worst thing that happened to Democrats was doing better than expected in the 2022 midterms, because if they'd had the shellacking that not only Obama had, but think about Clinton in 94. For the first time in 40 years, I think it was 54 seats they won. Newt Gingrich took over. That shellacking forced the both presidents to pivot, to look in the mirror. Think of the pressure that would have been on Biden not to run. The whole thing would have been
Well, that's
different.
exactly it, Dave, because Democrats always take away the wrong lesson from when Republicans underperform, which is what happened in 2022, by the way. It wasn't that Democrats overperformed, it's that Republicans underperformed.
Correct.
And Democrats go, "Oh, look, see, what we're doing is working. Let's double down on woke because we didn't get bloodbath in the mid. There wasn't a red wave. They take away the wrong lessons, and then 2024 happens."
Yeah, you guys had Dobbs laid on your lap in 2022, and that really helped, you know? I mean, I think that that's
And we
a
still
really
didn't get
bad
the
issue for
majority. We
Republicans.
still didn't
Yeah,
actually
true.
win the majority. Like,
But listen, Kurt, here's where I disagree with you just a little bit is we as Republicans get in our own way. We make the same mistakes. And I think that if I'm a betting girl, I would say now the house is going to flip in, a year and a half and 18 months because we'll do the same thing. Also, I'm a huge believer in divided government. Now, the problem when the house flips, no matter what party it is, all they do is pass messaging bills to try to, mess with the other party. So you spend a lot of time on nothing, but it does when you do have the big bills that must pass, it does have better policy at the end of the day. I
I
mean,
think the
everything
system
bad
works
that has
when you
passed has
have.
been when one party's in control.
I agree with that. I actually think the system works best when you have a president of one party and both the House and the Senate of the other party, because that way you can at least get into the president's desk and negotiate. I think the problem is when the House is one party and the Senate's another party, it's just dysfunction junction. Just the way that,
Yeah.
especially the way that the House is now. I mean, if it were up to me,
Yeah.
I'd abolish the House because I think they're useless.
Well, I think what
Just
they
like the
should have done with
penny.
the House.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they should have abolished it. I think that the biggest mistake they made, uh, and again, as a Rockefeller Republican, I'm in the wilderness here because I'm more physically conservative and socially more liberal, which is where the exactly opposite of what the party has gone. But they should have expanded the House as the population expanded. So you should have every House member maybe has a constituency that's 250,000 instead of I think the current is about 700,000.
Dave's answer is more congressmen. Oh my God.
Oh,
Well,
that
because
makes my
that's how
stomach
you
hurt,
have
Dave.
a truly representative body for the people by diluting it. So you have fewer people with less power. So
I mean, I get your point. I just feel there's more people than to deal with. But you're right. You're right. You're right. I mean, in
No,
theory, you're right.
I think that this would be a lot. The two things that ruined the House of Representatives, in my opinion, were um, when they decided to get rid of earmarks. After the Duke Cunningham scandal in '06, it completely neutered leadership, and basically gave rank and file no reason to. There's no penalty for bucking leadership.
Yeah.
Tom was able to be the hammer and keep people in line because he had the power of the purse. That completely wrecked the leadership structure. And then Citizens United, which allowed, primaries on both parties to just be ultimately funded into the extreme spaces, and it resulted in even more extreme people being sent to Congress, which created a more polarized environment where no one could get anything done.
and also what bugs me most about Citizens United is the anonymity. Okay. I think you should have no campaign contribution limits, but full disclosure. You track every dollar because right now there are no campaign limits anyway. And my theory is, look, if you want to give $100 million, that's your right. But darn it, I should know who you are. And the third thing I would add to your list, Kurt, is obviously to me is gerrymandering because you literally have representatives that are choosing their voters. I thought it was supposed to be the opposite.
Yep, I totally agree.
So,
I mean,
well,
that's why we
unfortunately,
only have very few seats every year that are that are actually
yeah,
true
I think
swing
there's 20
seats.
competitive seats out of 435.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyway, folks, well, unfortunately, I think we're going to have to leave it there. Spirited conversation as always. It is great to have you with us. I'm Dave Spencer, two partners, Ashley Javis and Kurt Bardella. I say thanks so much for joining us on Practically Political, and we will see you next time.